This is Michael Flynn in the bottom right corner. He's an ex-general for the U.S. Army, charged with, convicted of, and pardoned for passing classified intelligence to adversarial nations. And he's kind of a QAnon folk hero. Well, this cute Facebook page got him on for an interview, and it did not go as expected. He basically decided to tear him a new one, denying Q the whole time. I don't know why he reversed course on this. In 2020, he took the Q oath on camera and everything.
Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Where we go one, we go all.
Where we go one, we go all.
God bless America.
But he decided now is a good time to yell at this guy, Johnny Enlow, the Q pastor, for bringing it up. It gets wild. Let's give it a listen. Okay, this is Johnny Enlow. If you're unfamiliar, he believes Trump to be the new Messiah. Seriously. He believes Trump's the new Messiah. He's also a full-blown QAnoner. He deeply believes in the whole QAnon thing. So let's see what he says here.
This is a good time to interject with this question. And first of all, I agree. Steve knows for the last couple of years, I have been very hard, particularly on megachurch leaders, but the church in general, the failed leadership.
It's true.
My theme I speak on is the Seven Mountains. Those are the books I've written from 15 years ago.
If you're unfamiliar with Seven Mountains Dominionism or the Seven Mountains Mandate, the plan is, oh God, it goes back so far. Back in 1905, Tsarist Russia claimed to have found a document on a dead Jewish soldier called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and it was the plan for Jewish world domination. It was completely made up. They didn't find it on dead Jewish soldiers. It was plagiarized from a book written in 1854 that had no mention of Jewish people at all. It was all plagiarized. It was a satire book written in 1854 that it was plagiarized from, right? So anyways, the plan for Jewish world domination entailed things like taking control of the media and the banks and the military, getting your people to the top of these 7 areas of society. If the Jews could get their people to the top of these 7 areas of society, they wouldn't need to convert anybody. They could just control society that way, basically. It was completely made up, like I said, hundreds of years ago, but the Seven Mountains Mandate took that idea and implemented it and said, yeah, I'll have some of that. That is literally the Seven Mountains Mandate plan to take control of these 7 areas of society, exactly as was outlined in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Dead serious. So I don't know where the person that invented the Seven Mountains Mandate, as Johnny Enlow is referring to here, I don't know where they came up with it. Or where they heard about it originally, but it came from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, this document that supposedly outlined Jewish world domination or whatever, their plans for world domination. That's what the Seven Mountains Mandate is. That's what he's referring to here. So keep listening, see what he says.
Megachurch leaders, but the church in general, the failed leadership.
It's true.
My theme I speak on is the Seven Mountains. Those are the books I've written from 15 years ago, and it's about proper influence in every area of society. But the last 2 years of COVID, it showed that at the highest level, there was an absolute bowing to the agenda, the deep state agenda and everywhere. And the church didn't just allow it. They actually fomented it, pressed it forward.
Fomented it like it was like a military coup of some sort. Yet vaccines have been a well understood technology, if you want to call it that, for like hundreds of years. This is all well understood, and it's honestly a shame that these people are big enough suckers that they will buy into any nonsense like this.
Had Fauci on pulpit, said you can't come to this church unless you bow to it, and so with you.
What? Oh my God, dude. Okay, hold on. I gotta write this one down. Hold on. Let's just step back. This was at 2150, I think. Okay, hang on. Fauci was on pulpit saying you had to bow to the vaccine. What? Like, I just wish I knew what this guy's news source was. Where is this guy hearing all of this stuff? Where is he finding this stuff out? I mean, he's on Facebook, right? Is that where all this is coming from? Let's listen to that one more time. Just step back a little bit.
Didn't just allow it. They actually fomented it, pressed it forward, had Fauci on pulpit, said you can't come to this church unless you bow to it. And so
you can't come to this church unless you bow to it. Fauci went to a church and said you can't come to this church unless you bow to the vaccine. That's what he said? What? With
you on that. So here's the intro statement. And so I understand you as a general and your background in intel as well, that you're not necessarily called to disseminate real intel to us, but rather, this is my perspective, but rather supply appropriate words to the troops for where we're at.
Okay, this is a really important and relevant thing that Johnny Enlow just said, and it may have just been like lost in the noise, but let me explain. Let me step back, listen to this one more time.
You're not necessarily called to disseminate real intel to us.
You're not necessarily called to disseminate real intel, i.e., we understand you're not necessarily telling the truth. QAnon is a group that organized around a single person named Q, a guy that calls himself Q Clearance Patriot. And this guy posted all kinds of stuff online and made all kinds of ridiculous, nonsensical claims that most of which never came true. He got most famous for claiming that Hillary Clinton was about to be arrested, like the next day or something. They were expecting Hillary Clinton to be arrested, or she's going to be chased down or whatever else. Of course, that never happened. And how did they explain that it never happened? They claimed it was a psyop. It was all a plan by Q to mislead the people who needed to be misled. But he still knew what he was talking about. That was basically their defense, right? When QAnon gets something wrong, it's because it was a psyop against the bad guys. They were trying to trick the bad guys into doing something stupid. That's the idea here. And that's basically what Johnny Enlow is saying to Michael Flynn. We understand that what you're telling us may not be true, but you're doing it for our own good. That's basically what he's saying right now.
But rather, this is my perspective, but rather supply appropriate words to the troops for where we're at and the things that are needed. And we have history.
I have no idea what all of that means, but he's basically excusing his lies.
That speaks to us the value of generals doing that. George Washington, he never really let the troops know the real state of things because they were underfunded, underfinanced, underweaponized, in every conceivable way. They lost battle after battle after battle, but he somehow was able to rally the troops. And so there's this precarious balance even for a general between suck it up, buttercup, you're doing not quite that to us right now, suck it up, buttercup, to, hey, we can do this. And so there's that balance that's going on. But here's the deal. You were essentially revealed.
This guy lives in a fantasy land, honestly. Michael Flynn has no idea what he's doing right now or talking about or whatever. He is simply trying to increase his own power among QAnon by leading them along and making them believe that he is part of the white hat military. He is not. He is just some scumbag who committed treason against the U.S. government, got charged for it and sentenced, and then pardoned by another treasonous scumbag, Donald Trump. That's basically it. And people fell for it. They fell for it.
To us by Q. I didn't know who you were. I followed, it was because of prophetic words I was giving that people say, you must have heard of Q. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So,
and Johnny, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ooh, boy. Okay. I find this so interesting, their interactions. Michael Flynn is very obviously trying to appeal to the QAnon crowd. Very obviously. And so is Donald Trump. He invited the QAnoners to his Mar-a-Lago thing, like his recent events, to talk to them about, or to talk to like Mar-a-Lago about QAnon and how real it is and all that other garbage. They most definitely believe or court QAnon. They maybe not believe it. I don't think Trump believes QAnon. I don't think that Flynn believes QAnon. It's ridiculous to think he does. But they court QAnon. They try to get them to work with them. They try to draw their attention and build their power base by talking about QAnon and how much, all these other QAnon conspiracy theories and everything else. So I find it so interesting to listen to this interaction between effectively a QAnon pastor, somebody who has linked QAnon and religion together seamlessly, and one of the primary leaders of QAnon, whether he wants to be or not.
Okay. So let me just keep saying as you say that.
Okay, hold on. Let me just step back and let's listen again. Let's just take the whole thing in.
It was because of prophetic words I was giving that people say, you must have heard of Q. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So
and Johnny, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So let me just keep
Look at Clay Clark laughing in the corner.
saying as you say that.
God, look at all of their reactions. Look at Steve Schultz's reaction. He's like kind of cracking a smile a little bit because Steve Schultz definitely believes in QAnon too. Oh my God, this is so interesting.
I don't know what you're talking about. So
and Johnny, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So let me just keep saying as you say that. I'll just say, because it goes with the rest of my question. You were essentially revealed to us by Q, trust the plan, patriots in control. It was over before it began. There was continual references to you. Who knows where the bodies are buried? And then, but what I do hear from you is no one's coming to rescue you. If anything, I'd even written in my notes, if anything, a denial that there is Q and all, and I'm fine. I don't want you to, that's not the question. You can answer.
Okay, in Johnny Enlow's mind, there is no question about whether or not there's Q. Or whether or not Q is a real person, or whether or not he's like high up in the military. And I would take it even a step further and say that in Johnny Enlow's mind, he may even believe that maybe Michael Flynn is Q. And the excuse that Enlow is giving now for why Flynn is denying the existence, I would guess his excuse for this is probably that Michael Flynn doesn't want to be linked to Q, doesn't want anybody to suspect that he's Q or something like that. Like it's almost like he's coming up with these excuses in his head along the way. This is so interesting to watch.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if we're live. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we're live.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to just tell you, I have, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I know what this whole Q thing is. I think it's just sheer nonsense.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so it seems to me that he knew they were live. Okay, he just spent the last, how long? 30 minutes talking to the camera, right? He spent the last 30 minutes talking to the camera and telling everybody that they need to get their churches together to do blah, 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 blah. He knows they're live. What was the point of him asking if they're live? The point was to imply that he didn't want to talk about this publicly, but he was willing to talk about it privately. He was willing to acknowledge that QAnon is super real 100% behind closed doors, but not in public. That's the message he wanted to spread to the listening audience, and it's ridiculous. Seriously, is anybody buying this? Anybody? Give me a break, man.
Okay, well,
it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I mean, you see all the idiocy all over the internet, and these people that think that there's some white knight coming. There's no white knight coming.
Okay, this is actually something that Flynn's been saying for a while. This is not surprising at all. Flynn's been saying, okay, in QAnon lore, there's this idea that there's going to be like a storm. The storm is this event that's going to take place that will set everything right in the future. Like, there's going to be a big attack on whatever people who are evil and doing the wrong thing. They're going to be attacked and kicked out of the government and tried for treason and all this other garbage. And after the storm takes place, where they're all tried for treason and everything, then all of the good people, the white hat military people, can come out publicly and say, yeah, I was a member of the white hat military, and I orchestrated this whole thing to protect President Trump and put him back in power and all this other garbage, right? Well, hang on, let me step back.
It doesn't mean...
Well, Michael Flynn's been saying for a while, there is no plan. If you want something to happen, you have to make it happen. I am part of the white hat military, quote unquote. There's no plan. You make it happen. We're not going to make it happen. That's what he's been saying. In all seriousness, in reality, the storm was supposed to be January 6th. There was a storm planned by Trump, QAnon, the Proud Boys, and other high-up individuals. The storm was January 6th, and it failed. Now there is no storm. There's nothing coming that's going to fix everything. They live in a delusion.
That it doesn't exist. I mean, you see all the idiocy all over the internet, and these people that think that there's some white knight coming. There's no white knight coming.
I understand you saying that, but I can also show you, if we went it down that right, about 20 retruth things that President Trump does where he validates Q in some way. So
those are called deltas within the QAnon belief system. A delta in math is like a distance from one thing to another, I think, or something like that. In QAnon, a delta is Donald Trump tweeted about, I don't know, Michael Flynn being a nice guy, and literally 15 seconds before that, the Q account, the Q Clearance Patriot account, also tweeted before Donald Trump that Michael Flynn is a nice guy. And that is proof that Donald Trump knows and works closely with Q, the Q Clearance Patriot poster that started QAnon in the first place. That's not proof of anything. You know what? You know what that is actually proof of? That's proof that the guy who claims to be Q, the Q Clearance Patriot dude, knows that about 6 a.m, Donald Trump will probably be sitting on the toilet looking through his Truth Social account and thinking about things to talk about. All you have to do is look at popular news stories in the moment and figure out what Donald Trump is most interested in talking about. And you can create your own deltas like that, in that exact same way. So this whole thing is completely made up. These quote-unquote deltas don't prove anything at all. And it's embarrassing that he actually believes any of this. And Michael Flynn must know that. I'm honestly surprised that he's not, encouraging this QAnon thing. Because he's like a hero in QAnon movements. I'm really blown away by that. But okay, let's keep listening. Somebody says, who is Ray Epps? That's a good question. Ray Epps is just a guy on January 6th who was there, a Trump supporter, a full-blown, true-believing Trump supporter who was demonized and blamed for everything on January 6th. He was one of the people who said we should go into the Capitol, one of the first people that said we should go into the Capitol. And everybody there accused him of being a Fed, basically. He was not affiliated with the FBI. He was not an informant for them. He wasn't working with them. He was a true blue Trump supporter. But people wanted somebody to blame January 6th on, and so they picked him. I don't know that Ray Epps even went into the Capitol. I'm not sure. He may have. If he broke any laws, he should be in jail. But yeah, they blamed him. They targeted him and accused him and used stochastic terrorism to attack him. Absolutely insane. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Also show you, if we went it down that right, about 20 retruth things that President Trump does where he validates Q in some ways.
Right, so he's talking about the deltas now.
So it's
Ask him about Q then.
I'm not asking you.
Well, that's the problem. He can't. They can't ask him about it because he doesn't have access to Donald Trump. And also he may play coy. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. He's not going to accept that he doesn't believe it, or he's not going to accept that Trump has nothing to do with QAnon. He won't accept that. Johnny Enlow won't. Aside from that, Donald Trump wants it that way. He wants people to think that he doesn't know anything about QAnon. But then he'll do things like he'll invite full-blown QAnoners to his announcement speech that he's going to be running for president again. He will invite, full-blown QAnoners to give talks on Pizzagate at the White House, at Mar-a-Lago. This is Liz Crokin, a full-blown QAnoner, who was invited to Mar-a-Lago to give a talk about QAnon and Pizzagate. Just the other day. This is from, when did she come here? She came here mid-December 2022. So while this interview was taking place, while this was happening, full-blown QAnoner Liz Crokin was giving a talk at Mar-a-Lago in front of Donald Trump about Pizzagate and QAnon conspiracy theories.
And then we had Balenciaga come out. And I know most of you are probably aware that Balenciaga was sexually exploiting children in their ads, but it's also important to note that some of the top people working at Balenciaga were also openly promoting cannibalism, satanic ritualistic abuse.
It's all completely made up. All of it. Every bit of it is made up. But Trump invites these people to these events. Check this out. This is Brendan Dilley, The Brendan Dilley Show. This one came out November 14th, 2022. Listen to what he said here. Full-blown QAnoner, by the by. Full-blown Q believer.
I just got invited to Mar-a-Lago for President Trump's announcement tomorrow night. So I am going down to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. I'm leaving immediately after the show is over. I am flying in. I'm being picked up by mad liberals at the airport. And I am heading to Mar-a-Lago for an announcement from President Donald J. Trump.
He was invited, this guy personally invited to Mar-a-Lago for Trump's announcement speech. Who the fuck is this guy? Who is he? And why was he, of all people, invited to listen to Trump's Mar-a-Lago announcement that he's running for president? Why him? You know why? Because he's a QAnoner. Because Donald Trump caters to QAnon. He wants to be linked to QAnon. That is why. That is why this is playing out this way. That's why we're watching this happen like this. Donald Trump knows exactly what QAnon is. He invites QAnoners to Mar-a-Lago all the time. And he invited them to the White House all the time also. He knows what he's doing. Donald Trump likes to play coy, likes to pretend he knows nothing about QAnon. It's bullshit. And he knows it is. And everybody else does too. So in response to what Michael Flynn said here, ask Trump what he thinks about QAnon. Of course he's going to deny it. But he knows it's real. He knows it's out there. He knows that they are obsessed with him. And he knows that it's a conspiracy theory that's basically turned into a religion at this point. He knows all of that.
Retruth things that President Trump does where he validates Q in some way. So it's
ask him about Q then.
I'm not asking you about Q. This is not a question about Q. So the question is this. Right now, there is real weariness in what we would call the patriot community. Like I said, a general looks out for troop morale as well as the truth, and or the truth or reality, or you need to suck it up. We need to fight. And Trump, there's a big deal. I don't know if you know from today, the patriot community is a little bit reeling because Trump yesterday, and I know you say ask President Trump. Trump announced that he had a major announcement today, and in the major announcement, it is.
Oh, this is about the NFTs. Okay. This wasn't, he hadn't announced the NFTs yet, or he had just announced the NFTs when this came out, I guess.
The sale of a, what do you call the?
Digital playing cards.
Digital, and he's a Trump thing. And so.
Oh boy, yeah. I guess the QAnon community was not a big fan of that.
So there is, the assumption that
I would whoever advised him on that, I'd fire him immediately.
Okay, I was going to say there's either some comms going on, there's some communication, because it strikes the patriot community.
Plus for a period of time. So I'm gonna jump in, Johnny, because I don't know what direction you're taking. Well, man, because I don't know what direction you're going, but I can tell you what direction I'm going to take. And I think people are gullible because they're
no fucking shit. You think people are gullible, especially people in this weird little community right here,
looking for something. Why does this even occur if the churches are preaching the Constitution and preaching the Bible and talking about what we need to do to get this country revived again? Because I'm going to tell you, Christianity is lost in America. It is totally lost. We have lost sight of what this country was built upon. Okay, so
which is what? Go ahead and answer what? What is it built upon? You said they're directly misaligned.
Yeah, I said of Judeo-Christian principles and values. Yeah, I said of Judeo-Christian principles and values. I mean, the persecution of Christians in Europe from 1500, 1600, 1700. The idea of from Pastor Winthrop is the one that coined.
Like, do I even need to say it? This is completely made up. The United States was not built on Judeo-Christian values. That's made up completely. That is like a propaganda method, an attempt to link Christianity and Judaism together to receive the good benefits of being linked to Judaism. It wasn't built on Judeo-Christian values, and also, not only was it not built on Judeo-Christian values, but it was built on secularism, the country was. They're completely making this up, entirely. I mean, the dude mentioned Thomas Paine earlier. If he knows who Thomas Paine is, then he should know that the U.S. is built on secular values, the Enlightenment values. But okay.
The term New England, we're going in search of a New England, and in 1630, I mean.
So is the misalignment that they're bowing to the wokeness? Is that the misalignment? Because you've said the misalignment.
Yes.
But I wanted clarity on.
Dude, I think Flynn is getting sick of Johnny Enlow right now. Is it just me, or okay? Let's keep going. This is really interesting.
On the misalignment is they're bowing to
Johnny,
wokeness.
I want to chime in on three quick things, and then General Flynn, you can one-up me because you have more credibility. People respect you. I just want to interject this idea, okay? Thomas Paine, who you referenced earlier, has a quote that I like to keep here on my desk, and I'm going to read it to you. This is a Thomas Paine.
Okay, a lot of Thomas Paine's quotes were like encouraging and endorsing secular values. How much you want to bet it's going to have nothing to do with what the guy's whole body of work was all about?
Quote I keep right over here. It says here, the more men have to lose, the less willing they are to venture. Okay, so I grew up very, very poor. I came into this world with nothing. We're all going to leave with nothing. So I don't have a fear of losing something. So the first issue I see is Christian churches that I've met this year. And I'm not talking about Pastor Phil Hotzenpiller, great pastor. I'm not talking
I don't know who that
about
is.
Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne, great pastor.
Again, I don't know him either.
I'm not talking about many wonderful pastors. I'm just saying the vast majority of the pastors I've spoken to this year, Johnny, they say, Clay, I can't speak out against the Black Lives Matter agenda. I do know, I recognize that the founder of Black Lives Matter is a lesbian Marxist who admits to praying to demons, but I can't speak.
Okay, that doesn't sound right. I have no idea what they're talking about. The founder of the organization called Black Lives Matter is kind of a scam artist. I'm not a fan of her at all. I think she's terrible. The movement called Black Lives Matter is not the same as the organization known as Black Lives Matter. They're two different things. Now, the movement is all about equality, trying to get people to a point where they are not being treated unfairly in society anymore. Very different from the organization, who scams people out of money. So let's keep listening.
Speak out against it because I could lose giving. I cannot speak out against these COVID-19 shots because I have a member of my church who took the shots who might not want to donate after they discover that there's RNA modifying nanotechnology inside the shots.
There is not RNA. What modifying nanotech. What? No, none of that is true. It's completely made up. Clay Clark actually had a little bit of a break from QAnon. Like he was pushing a lot of QAnon beliefs a while back, and then he kind of stepped away from QAnon when they came after him. There was a massive outbreak of COVID at the Reawaken America conference, which is what he runs. He started it, right? There's a huge COVID outbreak, and the QAnoners don't believe that COVID is real in a lot of cases in the first place. They think it's fake. So instead of accepting that, they met in a public place and the result of doing so during a pandemic is everyone is going to get sick, instead of acknowledging that, they claimed that they were attacked by the deep state with an anthrax attack. They claimed that they were hit with anthrax. Seriously, I'm not joking. QAnoners went to the Reawaken America tour and died there. Some famous QAnoners died at the Reawaken America tour and accused people of starting an anthrax attack. All right, here's a Snopes article on it. No evidence of anthrax attack at conspiracy event. The Reawaken America event in Texas, December 2021, was the target of an anthrax or other biological agent attack. That's the claim. And the answer is false. Clay Clark realized how absolutely absurd QAnon can get with some of the things that they say and believe and do. And that's where I think he kind of broke away from the train, the QAnon train, if you will, was at that point. So, yeah, I don't think he's the biggest fan of QAnon anymore either. But let's keep listening here. Paine did not care for organized religion. Absolutely, Paine was very much a secularist. He did not want religion involved in politics at all. He wanted it out completely. So, anyway, thank you so much for the super chat. Are you saying Flynn wasn't always full QAnon? Also, somehow I forgot that Pokemon didn't always have the physical / special split. Yeah. Regarding Flynn, he has always catered to QAnon. He's always kind of tried to draw them in and be a leader among them. Anybody that's at the top politically or that's been through this system, like Flynn, he was at the top politically. He was like a 4-star general or something. Anybody up there knows QAnon is fake. They know it. It's nonsense. Now, if they claim that it's not nonsense, that it's real, they're just using it to their advantage. Simple as that.
Shots. They have something to lose. Now, I want to play this. It's a little clip. It's 2 minutes, and I want people to listen to the profundity of what's being said. This is Catherine Austin Fitts. She said these words on December 10th. Everyone look it up. Catherine Austin Fitts, very respected investment banker. And right now, at this very second, the programmable central bank digital currencies are on week 4 of their 12-week trial period. This would be the fruition of Joe Biden's executive order 14067. Joe Biden signed executive order 14067.
Right. So we talked about executive order 14067 earlier. It's just an executive order that's pushing for more regulation in the cryptocurrency market. That's it. That's all it is. That's what they're doing. They're pushing for more regulation in crypto. And apparently it's moving us toward the first steps in creating a US dollar-based cryptocurrency or something like that. It's not actually codifying, a US dollar crypto. It's just moving us in that direction. I don't know. There are a lot of countries out there that have their own cryptocurrency. China does. I think the UK does. A bunch of people do.
67, and he's implementing this thing called programmable central bank digital currencies. And this is Catherine Austin Fitts explaining to your listeners how they work in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So just listen to this, folks.
This is Richard Werner, the top academic scholar in the world on central banking, who wrote the book and did the documentary, The Princes of the Yen, about the Japanese central bank. Here he is in Malmo, Sweden.
What the hell is happening right now? He held up a picture of a guy's face, and Flynn looks like a sourpuss over here. I don't know what better word to use than sourpuss. That is the face that Flynn is making right now, right? Sourpuss. I think, is this Charles Schwab? Is that who that is? I can't tell. Like, I don't know whose face that is or what that looks like. It's so hard to know for sure whose face he's holding up. But, you know, they demonize these people and point them out and claim that they're, like, trying to destroy the world and everything. And this is all part of stochastic terrorism. You know, he's trying to turn this into a situation where the guy can't go outside without being attacked or whatever. It's just wrong.
In May.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that.
Right, CDBC, what they're referring to here is the cryptocurrency based on the US dollar, basically. It's not like some big conspiracy theory or whatever. Like, a ton of countries have their own cryptocurrency. Regular people have their own cryptocurrency. Crypto is super easy to produce. It's super easy to make. It's easy to start your own. Now, will it go anywhere? Who knows? Who cares if they create their own? Why does anybody care about this? I certainly don't.
But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like. He saw it. He was invited to one of the old central banks in Europe that are very much promoting this. And they showed him. And, you know, he's a top, executive director.
Top G? Is that what he is? Top G?
Of another central bank in Europe. And there's no reason to believe that he was telling me a story.
Okay. So what he's about to say should be taken with a healthy dose of skepticism. He has no reason to lie to me. He has no reason to tell me a story.
And he was around this large and would be implanted under your skin.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so they're saying that you're going to be legally required to carry a chip, a microchip in your body that's going to link you up to the US cryptocurrency, and you're going to be legally required to use that cryptocurrency to pay for things. And if you don't implant this into your skin or use this cryptocurrency or whatever, then you're going to be put in jail or some other nonsense. Dude, these conspiracy theories have been floating around since I was like a teenager, no joke. I remember hearing people make jokes about the government attempting to implant things under your skin and stuff. And I even messed with people and claimed that there was like a little spot on my arm where my parents injected a microchip into me and stuff. Just joking when I was a teenager, not realizing like how seriously some people took this shit. Absolutely unhinged.
The company has an idea that would let you ditch your wallet or purse and still be able to pay for things. The company Walletmore says the $300 chip is the size of a grain of rice. You'd most likely have it implanted in your hand, and once it's activated, you can use it at a checkout by just swiping your hand over the...
Well, honestly, that would be really cool, and I would love that, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not happening anytime soon. It's just not. This is completely made up. This is a huge logical leap from the U.S. government is doing or might do, not even guaranteed, but might do what everybody or what every other country out there has talked about doing or has actually done, which is create its own cryptocurrency. We're moving from that all the way to the U.S. government is going to force you to implant a chip under your skin in your hand so that you can use their cryptocurrency to... Blah, 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 blah. It's such a massive logical leap, but they don't care. They don't care how big the logical leap is. What they care about is scaring the shit out of old people. That's it.
The card reader.
FTX blew up in spectacular fashion. It looks like fraud.
No, this is Tucker Carlson.
But in the wake of that, rather than thinking through, like, why did regulators let this happen? There's a new effort underway to regulate every single financial transaction that occurs in this country through something called the Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that Tucker Carlson talked about this at length.
If that happens, we're done.
So you might have missed what happened Wednesday afternoon at the Fed.
Glenn Beck.
But they started their CBDC.
I honestly had no idea that, people were this paranoid about the CDBC. It just seems like a cryptocurrency that the U.S. government is creating. That's just my, preliminary investigation, just kind of looking at it, just glancing around, and that's all I saw. It's not that big of a deal. Why do they make such a massively big deal out of nothing all the time? Why?
Maybe we should start having the conversation of, gosh, this looks like the mark of the beast.
COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, even in democratic countries, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
So what's happening is, and it's not you, Johnny, it's not you, Steve, and it's not Robin Bullock. I mean, thank God for Robin Bullock. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for your wonderful listeners. It's these pastors, and people will come to me, listeners to your great program. They'll come to me. They'll come to General Flynn. We talk to them at these events. They go to the Reawaken America tour, and we greet them, and they say, I'm so glad you guys are speaking up because my pastor won't touch Black Lives Matter. And he's told me privately he can't speak out against it because we might lose donations.
What? What is he talking about? He can't speak out about something or he'll lose donations. Okay.
He won't speak out against the shots because he has a child who might want to play Division I sports, or because he has a member of the church who might not donate. And he really, really can't speak out against any of the election integrity issues because that would alienate people.
Wow, facing social consequences for becoming a conspiracy theorist. Who would have thought? Strange. Poor guy has to face consequences for spreading nonsensical conspiracy theories. Gotta feel for him, huh?
We just want to, right now, we got to get through this midterm, and then we'll kind of start talking about it more. And you're again, we go back to Thomas Paine, then I'll stop talking. Says the more men have to lose, the less willing they are to venture. And I just find that to be true. And I feel like what General Flynn is doing, sometimes with the subtlety of a missile, is waking pastors. No, I mean, backstage, he's talking to these guys.
Yeah.
And these pastors come to me and they leave going, I had no idea that these things were happening. I didn't know who Klaus Schwab was. I didn't know who Yuval Noah Harari.
Oh, I guess that is... Wait, is it Klaus Schwab? I thought it was Charles Schwab for some reason. Hang on, let me look up Klaus Schwab. Yeah, I think Charles Schwab is like an investment company, isn't it, or something? My mistake. Yeah, this is Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, which is like part of a huge conspiracy theory revolving around, I don't know. It's all just complete nonsense. The conspiracy theory is called the Great Reset, and it's all nonsense beginning to end. The Great Reset is kind of an all-encompassing conspiracy theory where the World Economic Forum is just some organization out there, not anything special or influential or any of that stuff. They basically said now that COVID has hit and affected people's economies or affected countries' economies so negatively, we now have an opportunity to kind of reset the economies that we are working with right now. We have the opportunity to take a step back and fix things and make it more equitable, more fair for everybody, not just the very rich. That's what they said at the World Economic Forum. And weirdly, they created a conspiracy theory. They don't want to reset economies. They've turned it into this big thing where it's like, you know, the evil satanic people out there trying to like take control of everything. And that's what the Great Reset's supposed to be. It's all just nonsense, of course.
He was. I've never heard about surveillance under the skin. Thank you for telling me. Then they go back home and wake up their congregation. And that's what I think General Flynn is. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's what I see General Flynn doing.
And let me ask, I hear you on that. Boy, this is really good stuff today. And General, I appreciate you're not mincing words. I appreciate that. This is not a show.
I.e., you're laying it on the line and calling us idiots for believing in QAnon, seems to me, right?
Mince words, so I get that.
Not. I mean,
Johnny,
this
I want
is
to
very,
make sure. Go ahead, General.
No, I mean, this is a spiritual moment, historically spiritual moment in this country, and you know, there's You know, the aspects of our lives are physical, emotional, financial, intellectual, you know, but what really surrounds all of that is this sort of the spiritual being of who we are. Even people who are agnostics or atheists, because at a certain moment, and I've met many of them, at a certain moment when
He's met an atheist? Wow, that's crazy. Huh? Must have been a scary experience.
when you know it looks like it's potentially going to be all over, they suddenly find a deity to say, you know, please help me, you know.
It's interesting he says that when they, you know what? Let me write this one down too. Hang on. It's interesting he says that because I actually did find myself in a situation recently where my life was near its end. I was in an airplane, and just the other day, and in that airplane, the flight attendant and the pilot actually came on the intercom and announced that we were preparing for a crash landing and that we needed to get in, you know, the traditional crash landing position, head between the knees and everything. The flight attendants come down the aisles looking to check to see if we're buckled, and they're crying. The flight attendants are crying. Okay, that's how serious the situation was. Everybody was crying. Everybody believed that this was our last moment alive. We sat there with our heads in our lap, listening to the flight attendants say, heads down, stay down, heads down, stay down, over and over and over again for a while. Like for 30 minutes. We were so close to the ground, I thought we were going to land on a road. We were 30 minutes at least, maybe 45 minutes away from the airport, and we were flying so close to the ground that I had phone signal the entire time. I thought for sure we were going to crash land on the road or something like that, right? But we made it. And you know what? Interestingly enough, I didn't appeal to a god. In that moment, I thought to myself, it would have been fantastic if I had that to lean back on. It would have been great if I could have put my faith in God that he would like bring me back to life and care about me and all that stuff. Unfortunately, it's just not true. It's just not there. If God doesn't care about helping Kenneth Copeland find his car keys, he certainly doesn't care about me or my life or what's happening. If God doesn't care about making sure an African child doesn't starve to death, he doesn't care about my ass. Either there is no God or he does not take a personal part, an active role in people's lives. One or the other. I don't know which, honestly. I'm leaning toward there is none, but who knows? So I'm sorry. That's simply wrong. There are atheists in foxholes. There are atheists on crashing airplanes. There are atheists all over the place. People who don't believe any of this. Not because they hate God. Not because they choose not to. But because the facts don't add up. That's just what it is.
When you know it looks like it's potentially going to be all over, they suddenly find a deity to say, you know, please help me, you know, help or say a prayer for me, and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Completely made up. There were no prayers happening between the atheists on that flight. If there's one thing that has been unequivocally proven, as far as I can tell, is that prayer doesn't work. I mean, we can look at studies that prove that prayer does not work. Is there a God? Maybe. Does he take an active role in our lives? No, he doesn't.
Or say a prayer for me, and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah. Go ahead, Johnny.
Just to finish up on that. So first of all, we agree with you on your points. We'll say particularly on a mainline megachurch mega churches. If we give you some good news, that doesn't really represent Christianity in general. There is an awakening. They are leaving the big churches, and not that I'm recommending it, they're leaving it en masse. The last 2 years, there is a high exodus from churches because they realized they were betrayed by spineless.
I don't think that's true. There isn't a mass exodus from mega churches. These people like to make it out as though they're winning some battle or some other nonsense like that. And their battle is primarily against atheists and mega churches. They're not really winning any battles here. I mean, they had a massive jump in attention a couple of years ago with QAnon specifically. And then that attention slowly and gradually faded away. And now they're at a baseline. They aren't winning any battles.
Non-courageous leaders in every kind of way. And so part of the Great Awakening taking place is an awakening to who the leadership is. And it seems like in many...
The Great Awakening is a QAnon belief, kind of like the storm. It's this thing that's going to take place where everybody is going to start believing in QAnon, basically. All of these things, if they were ever going to happen, already happened. The Great Awakening happened back in 2018 when it had its big boost in popularity. The storm happened on January 6th, 2021, when Trump was kicked out of office, basically.
Cases, they're actually implanted. It's part of the intrusion that the deep state has made in a very specific way, either through blackmail or they're disguising what their message was. And so that even was one of the, you pre-answered a question I have. Do you consider the state of the church in trouble? And it really is, just want you to know that at the mega church level, there is so much compromise. I have my own history being sued for $24 million by a church that then was connected to a whole bunch of other mega churches, and they were doing pedophilia.
What's all this? I didn't hear about any of this. Hold on. I got to write this one down. What is this? I got to look into this, figure out more. Okay. Go on.
Pedophilia and other things like that. So that's...
Oh, so he accused this church of being involved in all this stuff, apparently, and they weren't. And so they're suing him for defamation? ? It seems like that's what's happening right now. It's hard to tell.
Been going on a long, long time. And so that is, on the one hand, recognizing that, but that there has to be another message to, we'll say, those that have felt like, because I think another part of your message that I've heard, I haven't heard a lot of your programs, is you're asking Americans to do everything possible other than take up arms. And if it was
Did he exclude the possibility of taking up arms? I didn't catch on to that.
Absolute desperate levels, like in the 1776 and previous, before revolution, there is a time where the only solution is to take up arms. But I understand that is not one of your recommendations. And I know there's...
Is that true? I mean, I guess we're going to hear what Flynn's reaction is to this in a second, but I got the impression that that was specifically prescribed by him, right?
There's frustration because a top recommendation was get involved in the elections, do everything you can, and they see no justice, no point for it at all at this point. And so there is, one of my questions was, and I understand you want to keep
I want to talk about reality. I want to talk about reality, Johnny, okay? Not mythical, mysterious things that nobody has a clue who they are or what they are, and it's all...
Ooh, boy, wow. He's kind of being a dick to Johnny Enlow right now. Is it just me? Johnny Enlow effectively worships this guy, and it kind of blows me away that he's being a dick to him for no reason, seemingly. He could say this in a nicer way. He could be nicer to him, right? Like, I don't have any investment in this at all, but yeah, he's laying it on the line. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.